Just a quick heads up, this video does talk about Deviri Paradox a bit. Mild spoilers, but spoilers nonetheless. Go play that first before watching this. Or don't. I don't control you. Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series. A little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro. Of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. April 30th, 2023, noting the date so you know roughly whether DE updated the frame or not. Poor Ember. She got destroyed via nerfs. I still use her from time to time, but it sucks where she's at now. She's been reduced to a mid-level enemy clearer. Granted, she does still have uses, which we'll talk about here. Base stats on Ember Prime are 150 armor, 225 energy, 300 health, 375 shields, and 1.1 sprint speed. Not bad setup overall as far as stats go. Her passive gives 5% ability strength for each enemy within 50 meters that's on fire. I do love this mechanic, and it's a great way to make her stronger. As for Ember's first, she throws fire at the enemy. That's definitely an ability only one of the original 8 would have. It does benefit her passive, but realistically you're only going to be able to hit 1 or 2 enemies with it, so... Her second ability, Immolation, coats her in a protective flame that gives up to 90% damage reduction. I actually find this ability quite nice, all things considered. 90% DR is no slouch, and it does come in handy because sometimes she feels more fragile than she actually is. I can't explain this phenomenon. Her third ability is Fire Blast. Ever want to be one of those Eximists that knock you on your ass over and over? Jokes aside, it does have its uses, and it does armor strip. Her fourth ability is Inferno. She drops meteors on everyone around her, giving them fire status, which actually does a decent job in strengthening her passive. But you'd want it strengthened for her fourth, though I suppose spam is always an option, to be fair. To my knowledge, there aren't any weapon synergies with her, so just run something that does fire status. I would highly recommend the Ignis Wraith or the Cedo to boost your passive, but any AoE fire weapon will do, so long as it either has high status or fire rate. As for my build, strength and range, trying to overcome the Ember nerfs to such a degree where I plan on running 5 ability strength Archon shards. Now for a new segment, kinda. How does this frame fare for Deviri content? Well, she's great for everything so long as you're not running Steel Path in my opinion. But most Deviri content is below that, so she's actually really fucking awesome for it. Steel Path Circuit is a nightmare with her though, admittedly. I primarily use her for stuff like relic farming as well as doing the Requiem Murmurs, simply because she's actually really good at nuking rooms, and is best used for that exact purpose. After everything, how do I feel about her? Well, I definitely will say she's not as bad as a lot of people try to say she is. But I also will say that she's not great either. She's definitely aged quite a bit, and it shows due to how her kit works. I will say something I was experiencing for a while that seems to no longer be a problem was her third ability not reliably applying fire status, which is also why I didn't mention that earlier in the video. It seems to be working how it's intended now, so awesome. It is applying status and boosting my ability, so can't beat that. I will say her main issue is those nerfs, and the fact that she doesn't really have too much for scaling. She does have scaling, mind you, but it's just not as good as it should be. I don't exactly know how to put it in that regard, because it's, like I said, it's just it's in a weird spot. She's in a spot where it's, why run her for a nuke when you have Equinox? Why run her for mass room clearing when you have Mesa? I know that's basically the same fucking thing, but you get my point. Why run her for armor strip when you have Yneru? Granted, I will say her strip is definitely better than I would have thought when I really sit down and do it, as it is percentage based as opposed to just, you know, numbers based, which most strips are, to be fair. Actually, I think all strips are. I'd have to double check that. But either way, again, she's not as bad as people say she is, but she's also just not as good as she should be anymore. She's still an absolute blast to use, and I do use her frequently because I have quite a bit of an affinity for fire builds in these types of games, or any type of game really. Hell, even in Sunny, I usually go with the fire strain when I can. I guarantee, like, maybe 2 of you got that. But anyways, yeah, she needs some buffs. I would say mainly what I would like to see is, overall a bit of a damage buff, or some form of scaling for her 4th ability aside from her passive. And give her first ability some kind of range. Either change the ability or just extend the range. Mainly because of the fact that it would be nice to be able to strip more than just, 1 or 2 enemies at a time. Or not strip, prime 1 or 2 enemies at a time for her the rest of her kit. I flubbed that pretty hard, but that's okay, I'll keep that in. That being said, thank you all for watching. Feel free to discuss in the comments peacefully, and have a great day.